All right, I'll take it from here. I want to talk more about this with Republican strategist Alice Stewart and Democratic strategist Maria Cardona. They co-host the podcast Hot Mics from Left to Right. All right, so I want to game this out. Alice, would Jim Jordan, a hard right, strong ally of Donald Trump, have enough votes from moderates to be Speaker in your view?
Many of the Republicans I'm talking with feel as though he would not. And the reason being, look, he is very strong and committed on the issues that he fights hard for. He's fought really hard for this impeachment against Joe Biden. He's fought really hard for reducing government spending. But he has, given the fact he's super passionate about some of these issues, alienated some of the more middle-of-the-road Republicans. Many I speak with say Steve Scalise would actually have a better shot, given that he is appealing to more people, he has a bigger staff, he has more of a ability to really have to kind of campaign for this. Problem is with him, you know, his health concerns are a factor with him moving forward, but he really has, you know, the steam to move forward. People are frustrated. They're really frustrated with what Matt Gaetz did, and that in and of itself may unify people. They're frustrated that we have one person that came in after all the work Republicans have done to gain the majority. One person bulldozed the entire thing, and we have man-child Matt Gaetz telling his 7 dwarfs, hold my beer while I go beat up Kevin McCarthy because I don't like him. Now it's destroyed our chance to talk about the GOP agenda. It's destroyed our chance to take the fight to Biden and his failed policies, and here we are spending time looking for a new speaker instead of governing.
And the reality is now Democrats could get a less moderate speaker than McCarthy, like Jim Jordan. For example, do you think that Democrats are going to come to regret not stepping in to save McCarthy?
No, absolutely not, Pam. It was not the Democrats' job to save the chaotic GOP. That is exactly what they were hired to do by the American people. They were hired to govern. But we all knew from the very beginning that that was going to be next to impossible for them to achieve. McCarthy sold his soul back in January as he went into a corrupt bargain that now was the one who isolated him and essentially delivered his debacle. Because what he did was he agreed to this ridiculous rule that anybody could come in and, you know, do a motion to vacate to kick him out. And everyone knew it was going to be Matt Gaetz, right? We all knew that this day was going to happen, as historic and frankly tragic as it is for the whole country. No one is celebrating this. No one on the Democratic side is celebrating this. This is horrific. It's embarrassing on the international stage, and it does not do any good for the American people. But it does give Democrats a chance to demonstrate how the extremists on the Republican side are the ones who are running their part of the party, and it does no good for the American people, and that they then in fact don't deserve to be given the power to govern as a majority.
And there's no expectation, right, that these extremists will give up on those demands for the next
That's
speaker.
Exactly right.
And what will happen then? Will Republicans all come on board to vote for another potential speaker who makes all these concessions in order to become speaker?
Well, I can guarantee in the conversations I've had, one of the aspects that will not be included in the horse trading for the next speaker, they are not going to agree to have one person that come forward with the motion to vacate, because they know that they would be in the same situation Kevin McCarthy has been in ever since he took over the gavel. Someone like Matt Gaetz running around the Capitol with the motion to vacate. That's just not going to happen. And the irony here is Gaetz has been so frustrated with McCarthy for doing what you're supposed to do, work across the aisle, find bipartisan deals, which is what McCarthy did to keep the government open, working with Democrats to get a bipartisan deal. Gaetz is frustrated with him for working with Democrats. He only got this done because he worked with Democrats to get it done. And so that's the frustration. We need to look at the fact that bipartisanship is not a bad word, and we need someone that lead the Republican that can work with Democrats to keep the government open, and to work to, in my view, reduce spending, focus on securing the border, as well as providing the necessary aid to Ukraine, which is top of mind.
But here's another problem with what Kevin McCarthy did. Yes, Matt Gaetz was his undoing, but Kevin McCarthy put himself in that situation. He can't be trusted, clearly, by either side, right? That's one of the reasons why Democrats did not feel like they had to in any way come to his rescue. He lied. He went back on his word. Back in May, he agreed to a deal with the White House, with President Biden, and with Democrats when we raised the debt ceiling to keep the spending where it was so that there would be no threat of a government shutdown. He lied to the Democrats' faces. Then he made some other deals with Gaetz, and Gaetz said that he lied to him. This is somebody who the Democrats could not trust. Not just on that, But then we saw on January 6th, when he first came out to say Donald Trump is guilty, Donald Trump did this and that, you know, for January 6th, and he should be held accountable. What does he do 3 days later? He goes to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. And then he focuses on bringing an impeachment of Joe Biden based on absolutely no evidence whatsoever. So Kevin McCarthy built his own, dug his own grave, but then the next one who's going to come along, we don't know whether he's going to be able to be trusted or not, and I don't know that that person is going to be able to walk that line of placating the MAGA extremists, because it is more than Matt Gaetz, and also making sure that he can deal with the moderates in his party.
All right, Maria Cardona, Alice Stewart, we shall see how this all plays out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam.